Must leave everything. Must leave everything. Must leave everything! Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Robert, and today I'm gonna discuss Arkham Horror 2nd Edition and talk about being late to the party with a game, right? So now I do have an excuse. I did start this hobby relatively recently in 2020, and also the fact that this game has been out of print for some time now doesn't help. But yeah, wow, this is such a seminal and influential game, and I really just got compelled to wanted to check it out. And the reason why I got on my radar is because I heard that this is a great story generator, right? And I've been really becoming a fan of these types of games lately, all right? So it just it's super procedural, like like tons of Ameritrash games, a huge category that I enjoy. My favorite in that category being Shadows of Brimstone. So I did not know anything about this game gameplay wise, what it was like. I have played Arkham Horror the card game and Elder Sign, so those are the only two Cthulhu Mythos games that I've played before this. But other than that, I had no idea what this played like. I had never seen like a video playthrough or seen this at a table in person. Never. So I knew nothing about this going in. But yeah, the reason why I got it was a story generator. Love these types of games, and also almost checks that box of a RPG in a box type category almost. Okay, so yeah, I wanted to check this out because of that, and I made a thread on Board Game Geek, and some folks were able to give me some their insight, because I did have a concern when I first got this, and that was the having to control 4 characters for optimal play. I do typically have a cap of 3 characters, and ideally I like having to control 2 characters in games that require controlling that type of upkeep with multiple characters. So learning that the game needed 4 characters definitely was a big concern for me. Also the table space, but as you can see, I was able to figure it out. But yeah, some folks were able to give me some very nice insights, so I went ahead and pulled the trigger. And speaking of also finding this game these days, there's so many copies out there, but they're busted. Jesus, it's almost impossible to find a copy in good shape. I did get one at a good price though. Alright, so with that out of the way, what was my experience with the game? So I played this for 2 games, and each of them were about 4 hours long. I lost the first one, and then I won the second one. But yeah, very lengthy, so as some of you might know, this, at least for first timers, while you get a hang of the rules, this is a game that will take quite a while, okay? But one thing I like about that is that it feels like a RPG session, like a weekend length type RPG session, compartmentalized in a couple hours, in a few hours. And I think that once you get the hang of the rules, you could do this in 2 to 3 hours conceivably. But yeah, so it feels like a long epic game, and tons of things will happen along the way. At least in my case, this kept me engaged the entire time, because you never know what's going to happen. It's extremely random, and of course your mileage will vary with that. But one thing that I was surprised with this game, on the topic of randomness, was how many cool, like, positive things would happen, at least more frequently than in the card game, in my opinion. In the card game, like, for something good to happen or positive for the player is like extremely rare. But here, you will do an encounter, and you'll get an ally. You'll get an ally from one of the from the encounter deck, or you would or you'd get an item. That happened, and bad things will happen, don't get me wrong, but I was surprised how often I kept hitting good things that helped me. Or you would draw an encounter from like one of the Mythos cards that would actually have positive world effects. I was shocked at how many positive effects there were in this game. But again, don't get me wrong, it is still a brutal, it can be a brutal game if luck doesn't go your way. All right, but yeah, so that's my take on the randomness with this. At least coming from someone who actually played the card game first before playing this. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with the positive effects here. This was manageable as for controlling 4 as a solo player. Eventually, I got the hang of it. It wasn't too bad, but it was verging on the point of being a bit of a pain to like unpleasantly painful to manage. But I did get over that threshold, and I got in a flow where I was able to control characters, and I would rarely forget effects. Okay, I think that because of the juggling between the 4 characters, I don't think I played as efficiently as I could. All right, I think that just with more plays I'll get better with that. But yeah, there would be times where I wouldn't say I didn't want to like sit there and think for an hour, like how I should move the characters. I just kind of went with it, all right, and I did get better over time, trying to remember, synergies and items that the characters could trade and having them work together. But I don't think I exploited that as much as I could. But it is totally manageable. The characters don't have all that much information to begin with if you want to control multiple characters. They do have some upkeep effects and some passive effects that you have to, make sure that you keep track of. But other than that, items will only come in play at certain times, like when you make tests, or when you, like when you get stat boosts, to just make sure to look out for them. But yeah, it's pretty manageable. Now, the other thing with this game is it's the first time I've played a game where I have to keep track of the turn structure so closely, because it's very easy to get lost with turns here. So the only way that this works is if you have something like this, some mnemonic device to keep track of turns. And I don't think that I've ever printed more supplemental materials for a game than this one, because the turn structure really just requires you to print things that will help you keep the game on track. All right, but one thing that was very helpful, I had to make this myself based on I had to make this myself basically. Since I have the board at an angle, okay, I went ahead and printed this and put it up in a little stand there, so that I can read what each location does at a glance. I can just put this up to my face and read what each location does, right? So that was very helpful. The turn flow chart was the most helpful thing I could print for this. Indispensable. If you have not printed this, make sure that you do. All right, the turn flow chart for the win. That was great. Errata, there's tons of errata here. Okay, and but you know what? A lot of rules questions were answered here. I thought that I would end up having a lot more rule questions. I did have a few that the rulebook doesn't address for sure. But yeah, and this is the revised edition too, by the way, so I guess some of that's implemented. But yeah, every rule question that I had was answered here. Okay, so this errata, this FAQ errata document from FFG was indispensable. And we got the universal head summary, of course. Got a little. I didn't end up using this. This wasn't very useful because I don't have a way to check which phase I'm in. So this didn't end up being that useful at the end. There's a newbie FAQ I printed from the forums, and the reference guide, indispensable, and from the file section. Anything that I couldn't find on the FAQ errata, I found here, and between those two, every rules corner case that I ran into, I was able to find it there. But once I got into the groove of it, it really just comes down to following the turn phases. It's that simple. And, just remembering little things like, keeping track of the monsters, keeping track of the monster limit, the portal limit, that type of thing, okay? This wasn't exactly easy to learn either. When people said that this is a fiddly game to learn, it definitely is, but I've seen worse, so I'm not gonna complain too much about it. But yeah, it's not exactly a cakewalk either, learning the game. All right, for a core set, I love the amount of variety that comes in this, between the different characters and the different old ones that you can fight. and also the item deck. So I put all of my items and all of my small card decks in one of these. And yeah, I love, these are pretty thick, all things considered. You're not gonna see all of this in one game, at least controlling 4 characters. It doesn't last in other. You should be going to one of these in one game. One thing I also really appreciate is that you don't have to have discard piles in this game, and that just not only does it make setup quicker, it also saves so much space. Christ, imagine if you had to have discard piles for this. I would not be able to fit this in the game. Health and the health and sanity tokens. I had to get rid of the 3 digit health and hard tokens because you can't distinguish them barely. Like you can very easily confuse them and end up picking up the token of the wrong denomination. So that was really annoying. I ended up having to get rid of them. I got these dice instead, and it definitely reduced the amount of fiddliness. Money, some people say that it's fiddly. I really didn't mind managing, just using the little money tokens. I thought they were okay. So there's an insane amount of variety in this game, and with the variable setup of random characters, random old one, random starting items, it's insane. Like no two games will ever be the same. Thinking of the fact that this game came out back all the way back in the mid 2000s to wow, this I can see how this was extremely groundbreaking back in the day. And now, don't get me wrong, even despite its age, I think that this holds up really well. And one of the most my favorite aspect of this, to me, is the variable skills system that you have here, where based on your character's focus, you're able to adjust your stats at the start of each turn. I've not played a game that does that, and I think that's the heart of this game, because if you took that away, it would not stand out as much compared to other games these days. But this system right here, yeah, this is wonderful. I love, that's where I did spend my most time during the upkeep. Once I got the groove of the game, I got the hang of the turn flow. This is in the upkeep, choosing how I was gonna adjust my skills. That was a very interesting part of each of the experience, right? Adjusting your character skills to the situation. So that was very, very neat. Now, the only area where the game lacks a bit in variety is the encounters. I do wish these decks were slightly thicker for the location encounters, but that's a minor complaint. The amount of the experience here it's vast, and no two games will ever be the same. The permutations that this box offers are pretty much infinite, and I'm very happy with just the amount of content I have from the core. With the expansion prices these days, I don't know that I'm gonna pursue them, but I'm really happy just to have this box. Just and it'll be interesting to see later on, months or years from now, when I revisit this game, how well I'll retain the rules. It definitely is pretty unique because of how rigid the turn structure, you have to follow it. But yeah, I think that with all the aids that I printed, should be fine. And I just have to say that this is just so good at telling stories. I think that, for those that have played this, you know that already. And yeah, from someone who's a newcomer to this, I can absolutely confirm that the way that this generates stories on the fly is crazy. And one really funny thing that happened was I made a bank loan with Monterey Jack, and he ended up having all of he was the character that had the most items, but he rolled a 1, 2, 3 for 3 turns in a row after I bought an Elder Sign. That's why I made the bank loan, right? It was kind of late in the game. Like my mentality, like strategy wise, I've learned a couple things, but my mentality was, okay, I think I'm kind of late in the game. I don't think a bank loan will affect me too negatively, right? So I got a bank loan with him, and he gets his money. I use it to buy an Elder Sign, and then he never ends up using it because through circumstances he ends up getting lost in time and space. He keeps rolling 1s to 3s in his upkeep, and I couldn't find a way for him to make money. So whatever money he had left, the bank took it every turn, and the bank just took all his possessions. Like if you want to know why his board looks so empty, they took everything. And you know what? Didn't matter because I won at the end. So that was pretty catastrophic. And I thought, wow, am I gonna lose? But no, I was able to keep it under control. and I won in the end. Okay, uh, yeah, so little funny things like that, like finding allies and like reading the flavor text, just a wonderful, wonderful story generator and one of the best in my collection. So now, do I recommend this if you're like new to the hobby and you want to grab like an old classic like this one? Well, if you're willing to control four characters and you have some pedigree playing games, definitely. If you find if you can also find a copy at a decent price that's not completely destroyed or missing pieces, that might be a challenge as well. Okay. But I do recommend this 100%. Love having this, and there's nothing like it in my collection. There's tons of games that have been inspired by this, that borrow mechanics from this. Definitely, one thing that it reminded me of initially when I started playing it was Pandemic. The way that the board looks, the way that you have to put out fires. I can't remember when Pandemic came out, but if it came out after this, I'm sure that this had some influence in that. But yeah, if you're a bit more mature into the hobby and you already have some experience controlling multiple characters in games, I do wholeheartedly recommend this. And you can just buy the base game, and there's so much content here, it's nuts. But love having this, and I'm glad I pulled the trigger on this. Okay, there's been a couple times where I buy a game that everybody loves, raves about, and I end up being disappointed. Glad this wasn't one of those cases. I can see all the hype and all the respect people have for this game, and I agree 100%. This is an incredible game, and I don't see myself. Just a quick commentary on the other iterations of this. I don't see myself buying Eldritch Horror. Um, I don't. I've never heard of anybody say that it's better. It's just streamlined and that's it. I love the art, and by the way, I love the art of this. I didn't mention that. Like, I love the art in this, and like this, it has a bit of a old school look to it that I adore. But yeah, so on that end, just on the art alone, like I don't really like the look of Eldritch Horror. I prefer how this looks, so I don't see myself getting that. And on the third edition side, I don't care for the scenario based element of it. I love it when games like this are not scenario based and you just shuffle a bunch of decks and you're good to go. So I love games that do that. Don't care for the scenario element, but yeah. So I love having this in my collection. Maybe if I see like the Dumb Witch Horror expansion at a decent price that's not missing a bunch of stuff, I'll get it. But yeah, amazing game. Love having this. So recommended if you already have some experience playing games. If you're starting out in the hobby of playing solo board games or RPGs of this style, do not get it early on, or like I would not recommend it as a first game personally. I think it's a bit heavy to manage. Okay, like if you come from like Monopoly or Uno or something, don't jump into the solo board gaming hobby with this for sure. But yeah, folks, those are my thoughts on Arkham Horror Second Edition. And if you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comment section. And if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.